And now a word from the legal department. This operations video has been produced with a lighthearted tone, but it is important that you keep in mind the absolute necessity of safe, careful track operation. Guests or attendants can suffer serious injury or even death if proper procedures are not followed at all times. If you are unsure or you have any questions about anything you see in this video, please see your manager. Hey, where's my pit crew? JW! Hey, you gotta check some stuff out here, baby. I think that restrictor plate got left on from Daytona. Hey, everybody, it's Bob Wheela back with you for J&J Amusements. Taking a little break from my tough racing schedule to help you out today with go-kart track operations. A lot of things to show you, but a lot of good ideas. How to run your go-kart track simply, efficiently, and most importantly, safely. Well, let me get out of my brand new 2002 J&J Special. We'll get to work. I love the smell of the track in the morning. It's quiet, it's peaceful. We're getting ready to go racing a little later on. But before we can go racing, we got to make sure the carts are ready and the track is ready. And that is why we recommend you follow your checklist. Now, we provide you with the basic safety things to check at the track, but you should take this list, customize it, make it your own, make it appropriate for your facility. Make sure everybody at the facility knows the checklist top to bottom so you're all on the same page. Well, we start with the basics. The sound. Does the PA work? Testing, testing, 1, 2. All right, no bumping. You heard me, or I'll take you off the track. You know how that goes. Also, how about your inter-facilities communication, i.e. your two-way radios? Coffee ready yet? Important things need to be checked on in the morning. How about those safety items? Do you have the fire extinguisher on hand at the track? Is it charged? Does everyone know where it is? Is the needle in the green? Remember, if the needle's green, everything's clean. How about the first aid kit? Does everybody know where it is? Is it fully stocked? Is it ready to be used? Safety is always first at the track, especially for your guests. All right, how about the ride timer? Is it working properly? Do you push the right button? Do you get the right color light? You know the rules. Red button, red lights. Yellow button, yellow lights. Green button, everyone all together. The green light works. Very important to make sure the timer function is also working. You don't want someone's mom coming back later saying, our ride was shorter than the last people's ride. You know how that can go. And finally, is the spiel ready for the guests in line? Most of you have an audio recording loop, tells the guests all the rules of the track, and some of you have video loops. That also is an exciting way to give the guests a little preview of what they're going to experience on the track. All right, we've been in the pits a little bit. Now let's talk about safety on the track itself. It's time to go out and check the racing surface. Safety time on the track means walking all the way around the track, just like they do at Talladega before the big race. You're looking at your concrete surface. Want to make sure there's no breaks, no rough spots, no loose marbles around the edges. You know what that can do to tires. And importantly, you want to look at your bumpers and your gates. Some of you have a lot of gates at your tracks, and they get a lot of action all day long. You want to make sure they open and close cleanly, and you want to make sure they latch properly once they're closed. Moving around the track, again, you're looking at the concrete surface, and most importantly, you're looking at the bumpers. You want to make sure there are no breaks in these rails. If there's a break at all, anything that could catch the edge of a cart, you want to report it immediately. Make sure the tires, the bumpers are anchored properly as well. And a good thing to do every morning, and this is more for the guest's sake, is to clean the track nicely. Get out your leaf blower and blow everything off to the outside of the track. That way it's easier to sweep it off, make the track look nice and clean. Well, the track's ready to go. Now let's get into the pit area and get the carts ready for opening. All right, let's get ready to get these carts out on the track so you can open for business. The most important thing to have is your checklist. You know how I am about record keeping and paperwork. Keep a checklist every day for every cart, every day of the week. We're going to start in the back with our pre-opening checklist on the carts. Start with the fuel. You want to have your fuel filled to 1 inch below the neck in the fuel tank. And of course you want to make sure that the cap is on nice and tight. Safety first all the way. Now let's go inside the cart here. A lot of basic things to look at here, but all important. Make sure the seat belts are untangled. Everything buckles neatly. Make sure these pads are in place for both the safety and the comfort of the customer. Get down inside. Check out the play on the pedals, both the throttle and the brake. And make sure the steering is nice and even. Examine the body of the cart. Make sure there's nothing that's going to snag the clothing of a customer. Make sure there are no cracks. Even little things, when caught early, can avoid big problems later on. And finally, and most importantly, make sure the remote shutoff for the cart is functioning. Now let's go over warm-up and test drive procedures for every cart at your track. Let's start in the back. Kill switch to the on position. Fuel switch should be in the on position as always. Set your choke in the starting position and fire them up. All right. Now after a second, we'll slow it down a little bit on the choke. You're going to let this motor idle for 5 minutes. Well, in Bob Wheela time, that's 5 minutes. After that, it's time to take it out for a test drive. Now make sure you test drive every cart every day. You don't want to get them out there and have them dying on the customers. So that little bit of a test drive every morning can be very, very important with the overall success of your opening procedures. Once the carts are fired up, you've idled them, you've test driven them, it's time to open up the park and let's go racing. Let's talk about crew responsibilities now. The pit crew are the folks that let the guests through the gate, check to make sure they meet all the age and height requirements, make sure they're properly ticketed or wearing wristbands, and of course, they help them into the carts to begin their ride. Now, as the guest enters the pit area, look for things like loose clothing, hats, long hair, maybe have the guests take off their hats, tuck in loose clothing, tie up their hair, because it could get caught in the engine. You want to make sure the cell phones aren't on, no food or drinks are allowed, and remember, no shoes, no shirt, no ride. Direct the guests to the appropriate pit lane. Instruct them to follow the curbs and wait in front of their cart. Then you'll close and latch the entrance gate. Help the guests get into their carts. Assist them in putting on the seatbelt, the shoulder harness. Make sure the lap belt is on the lap and snug the shoulder harnesses after the lap belt is tightened. Go over basic cart functions with the younger drivers after helping with the seatbelt. Show them the brake and the throttle. Now, after all the guests have been loaded into the carts, visual inspection on every driver. Make sure the seatbelts are fastened and properly adjusted on the drivers and the passengers in the two-seat carts. No loose clothing, no hair unfastened. Now, once the carts have all been checked, come back to the curb and give the all clear sign to the operator, and you're ready to roll. Make sure there's adequate spacing during the dispatch of the carts. Now, once the carts have been turned loose on the track, make sure the pit divider is set so the carts return to the proper pit lane when the session is over. During busy time, some tracks will double pit. During a session, the pit crew will be loading up a second set of carts following the same safety guidelines we already talked about. Now make sure that prior to loading any carts that pit divider is set properly. That'll make sure that a cart coming off the track does not hit a loaded cart in the pits. Now as the session ends, have the guests slowly enter the pit area by using hand signals to make sure there's no bumping and that all drivers remain seated until they're signaled to exit. Once all the carts have entered the pits and come to a complete stop, signal the operator to instruct the guests to exit. Be sure that all guests follow the curbs to the exit gate, and do not allow guests to climb over the carts while exiting. If you're double pitting the carts that were loaded during the session should leave the pit area completely before the arriving guests exit the carts. It's like a beautiful ballet in the pit area. Now, once the guests have completely exited, begin the ride cycle again. Remember, be aware of your surroundings. Never step in front of a cart with a guest seated in it. When needing to move a cart, always sit in the intended position. Set a good example for a guest. Don't do anything you wouldn't want them to do. The next position we'll talk about is track attendant. Your main job is very simple here. You're assigned a certain area of the track to monitor. At the beginning of a session, a track attendant might be the person who opens the track gates if their position is close to a gate. Be sure to stand behind the gate so you're out of the path of the cart. Now, during the session, the track attendant will monitor their area, making sure all guests have their seatbelts fastened during the entire session. They'll also be watching for intentional bumping or other unsafe driving. If a guest needs to refasten their seatbelt, notify the operator to stop the session using the remote shutoff if you have it, and also to turn on the yellow traffic light. Then help the guest with their seatbelt. Once the attendant has returned to their position, the session can be resumed. An attendant should never enter the track or be in the bumper area during a fully active session. be sure the traffic lights are on yellow for caution and you hit stop on the remote. If a guest is bumping or driving in an unsafe manner, most of the time you can notify him without stopping the session. Use hand signals and a whistle to get their attention.